Actually, it is living in serenity. It is living in serenity with a lot of hope, for sure, right? Today we're going to be studying a chapter titled Answering Jesus. Answering Jesus is the very chapter of the book Perante Jesus. Perante Jesus is a book before Jesus that is being translated, and and it is going to provide to us tools to live in serenity. I think so, because this book is really unique. It was a book that was written through Chico Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel in 1989 to 1990 and published then. So 30 years ago, and it's so current for all of us. In moments of chaos, crisis like we're living nowadays, due to so many things, including the coronavirus, what do we need? We need serenity. How do we gain serenity? Like any virtue, it requires effort and repetition. We don't know yet, but we're going to be able to unfold all these opportunities of practicing this serenity within ourselves. Give me just a second. Let me just double check if our system is working here, friends. 1 second, please. I'll be right there with you. 1 second. Yes, I can see it is working right here. So, yeah, I can see it's coming through. So, for us, serenity is a virtue to be acquired through practice. How do we practice it? By observing our emotions and aiming higher. So we need, first and foremost, to stop the chain of reactivity, because often we're reactive. Often we see things and we respond instinctively. Many answers to problems like this. I see two people talking to one another and I feel jealous. Oh, why are they always talking to each other? What about me? That, it comes from many lives. We've been there, done that. What we need to do is talk to that jealousy and say, hey, come with me. Let's take a walk in serenity, shall we? Why you're jealous? Remember, they are your brothers and sisters. So we need to talk to that feeling and say to that feeling that it's all right, that we don't need to be afraid, we don't need to be jealous, we don't need to be angry. And then little by little we'll conquer those feelings. And once we conquer those feelings, we can elaborate a better response. Thinking, I'm not expecting to receive anything, but I'll give. I'll be happy that they are happy together, that they are happy talking to one another, and I'll send them loving kindness. I will participate in silence. How about that? This is the practice of serenity as well, right? So this is just an introduction for us, because the Christ consciousness, which is truly universal and can be found in many different philosophies as well, brings to us answers to old problems of humanity, old problems of ours. So welcome to Kardec Radio. Welcome to Living in Serenity, friends. This is Answer in Jesus. Welcome, John De Rosa. Welcome, Alan Swift. How are you? Welcome, Carol Correia. How have you been? Welcome, Sol Souza. How are you? Welcome, Teresa Castro. Hello, dear Nora Brazil. How are you? And Daisy. Hello, Daisy. How are you? Sunshine. How have you been? Andrea Andrea Bosley, how are you? And remember, you can always make a comment because this is like a classroom. We're learning together. The master is Jesus. The instructor is Emmanuel with Chico Xavier, and we're the students. Ricardo Pifano, good evening to you. Welcome, dear friends. I know there are many more people here, but I can't see you all, just the ones who make a comment. But remember, if you're watching this on demand, this is a moment of togetherness, a moment for you to feel embraced, to feel cared for, to receive the healing vibrations and the invitation to serenity, okay? All right. Are you ready for today? Because today is poetic and it's a true gem of serenity. So, are you ready for this? Take your dumbbells. We're going to work out for serenity. New answers for old responses. All right? This is Answering Jesus. I'm going to read it all to you, and then we're going to break down in reflections together. Remember that all challenges of evil must find the answer in Jesus in the field of our souls. For sarcasm, the answer is charity in the form of silence. For slander, the answer is charity in the form of forgiveness. For selfishness, the answer is charity in the form of renunciation. For fanaticism, the answer is charity in the form of tolerance. For ingratitude, the answer is charity in the form of forgetfulness. For laziness, the answer is charity in the form of work. For temptation, the answer is charity in the form of resistance. For ignorance, the answer is charity in the form of education. For violence, the answer is charity in the form of meekness. For crime, the answer is charity in the form of aid towards the victims of delinquency. For darkness, the answer is charity in the form of light. For all processes of inferior activity, the answer is charity in the form of helping to create the best. In any problem of the path of life, the Christian response will always be to dissolve the force of evil by the force of the good. The gospel in the heart. When the gospel is located exclusively in our eyes, we are likely to move down from the luminous position of companions to the condition of inquisitors and inspectors of our best friends, because it is always easier to discover the mistakes of others than to surprise our own mistakes. Welcome Raquel Bakeshi to Kardec Radio. And I see Renata Casadei, big hug to you. So, Teresa Castro says, good to be reminded that serenity is a practice, need to take action towards achieving it. I agree. And the current time, especially with Mentor Joseph, together with the spirit mentors of Kardec Radio, they invited us to study this book. He said, we need to do it to practice thinking of serenity, because at this time of the earth, if we want to be helped and help, we need to cultivate serenity. And serenity was mostly exemplified by Jesus at the time of the cross. Says Emmanuel in the chapter Habit 21 of the book Thought and Life, the habit of serenity by the cross. At the extreme moment of difficulty, he kept his cool, his serenity. Why? Because God knows of everything. When you think of the coronavirus, tell the coronavirus, I see God above you. Yes, and this coronavirus is just a man-made creation, which is below God's creation, in the sense of God is superior to it all. God knows what's going on and is taking care of all of us. We will only go through the experience that we need, friends. It's easier said than done, I agree with you. But if we cultivate those thoughts and feelings, it's going to make us stronger during this time. We cannot panic. We need to be cautious without panic, and we need to cultivate a positive mind. Jesus at the cross didn't see an end. He didn't see a threat. Didn't see the end of the world. He saw a moment of transformation for everybody. For him, life would go on as for everybody else. But while he would just continue ascending and going back to his governance of the planet, for all of us, he knew we would spend millennia in difficult learning experiences due to our rebelliousness, stubbornness, etc., etc. All right? All right. So, thank you so much, Michelle, for being with us. Thank you, Eunice. She's saying she's asking for prayers for everybody in the world, and we pray. Yes, thank you, Eunice. Prayer, prayer, prayer. Prayer for you, prayer for everybody. All right, let's go back. Is the world being more specifically challenged nowadays? Yes, it is. It's a unique moment in our planet. We're not going to panic, but we recognize we're going through a collective expiation, right? You can tell. And when we talk about collective expiations, we need to have a collective understanding. So, what do? Emmanuel in this lesson today talks about how Jesus would provide to us the best responses to all the challenges of evil. Evil in Spiritism equals to ignorance, lack of experience. So here he says, sarcasm, for example. What do we do when we are facing sarcasm? He says, throughout it all, the charitable attitude is always the answer. And there is a feature of this charitable attitude that can be very helpful. So let's think about this. What is charity? If you go to the Spirit Book by Allan Kardec, in the chapter of the third part of the Spirit Book, chapter, the law of justice, love, and charity, at some point, Kardec asked the spirits, what is the definition of charity? And they answer, it's a threefold action. So charity is benevolence towards everyone, meaning being of goodwill towards everyone. 2, indulgence towards other people's imperfections, meaning indulgence means to put some sweetness in something, right? So indulgere, dolce, so you put some sugar into something, meaning I see people's imperfections and then I give them a break, second chance, or I just think maybe they're doing this because they're tired, because they're sick, because they are fragile, something. And 3rd, forgiveness of offenses. We won't be charitable if we don't conquer these 3 aspects. And he's saying here, for sarcasm, the response to sarcasm is the charity of silence. Don't reply. If you see a post on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, email, or people talk to you, be sarcastic, don't react. Let them be. They want to be sarcastic. Bad for them. What about slander? People talking bad about us. Hopefully not us talking bad about others and creating stories. The response is the charity of forgiveness. They don't know what they're doing. It's so sad. Look at Fulvia in the book 2,000 years ago. Fulvia, as you read in the book 2,000 years ago by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, she created a whole mess for herself. She slandered Livia and put her husband, Publius Lentulus, against her. And how did she end up in that life? Completely insane, sick, and of course the afterlife was terrible. Lives to expiate. So for us, forgive. They don't know what they're doing. Hopefully we're not the ones creating stories about people. You know how slander goes by? Slander is like this. When people say, oh, I saw that person talking to somebody else in a restaurant. You see, they're married. What they're doing together, I don't know. I think they're cheating. And then that person tells the other person, who tells the other person, and we cultivate that mentality. So that is a slander. I'm saying this because some people, they think they don't do this, but they talk like that. Oh, I've heard, I think. And then we just spread mental viruses. And then the mental virus comes back to us. So you think the coronavirus is like God sent? No, it's man-made. We created the Frankenstein through thoughts and feelings of negativity, of selfishness, abusive ambition, high levels of ambition, selfishness, pride, etc. Now, it comes back to all of us. Yes. Hello, Pedro Soares. How are you, Silvio Otero? You're right, Teresa. Pray for courage versus panic. Right. So what about when people are selfish? What do we do? Like, you know, the boss is always traveling. I'm not saying it's true, but just say it. Think about it. Traveling, have a nice time, and not giving to the employees much opportunity. Selfishness? Yes. How do we answer? The answer is charity. The charity of renunciation. What is renunciation? You may be asking, right? Let me guess I like the definitions in the dictionary because it's beyond just a thought. It's a real thing. So, renunciation is the formal rejection of something, typically a belief, claim, or course of action. So, like, when we renounce to claim our rights. Remember the book? The book, Paul and Stephen, first chapter. Jochebed, the father of Stephen and Abigail, he is outraged because the Romans stole his land and they beat him brutally in the streets. So he's planning on talking to a certain man, the quaestor, and doing exactly what it is here, claiming for his rights. Those people were so selfish that when he did it, you know what happened? He lost even the land that he had. That's how selfish people were at the time. Brutal in their selfishness, right? So, Stephen at the time said to his father, "Father, let us renounce claiming for our rights. God knows what we're going through. We can't make justice with our hands right here and now." He didn't listen. He lost his life. Stephen was sent to slavery, and Abigail was left to herself. The rest is history, and you can read in a book, Paul and Stephen. So what is the answer, the response, the Christ-conscious response, or the serene response to fanaticism of all forms? People who are fanatic about anything. People think that it's only religious, but it's not only religious. Because fanaticism, and I'll bring again the definition here. The quality of being fanatical, but that not necessarily restricts to religiosity. You know, people can be fanatical about their sports game, their sports team, so fanatical that they can stop watching and following, etc., etc. There's so many things. So what is the response to it? Charity of tolerance. Tolerance. And tolerance is not what we think in terms of putting up with the person. No, no, no. Tolerance is true understanding of where the person is coming from. Many people are fanatical because they feel secure. It's a compensation for some form of insecurity. They need to compensate. Some people think that we're fanatical because we're always talking about spiritism, etc. But you know, it's not fanaticism. It's just love for the cause, because there are so many people who are in need of these teachings. We need to share. We can't stop sharing it. That's completely different from being fanatical and sectarian and thinking that that's the only thing. No, we value all other philosophies, religions. We value all, even the other fields of life. They are as important. This is not the only thing. And this helps us, Spiritism helps us live a better life. So we're not fanatical. But what would be the response? Tolerance. Oh, that person is so fanatical about this. Well, let us understand. Maybe they feel like compensating for something. We need to understand. That's our turn. What about when people are ungrateful? Right? You do things like parents and children. Often there is that feeling of ingratitude. So much so that in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, chapter 14, item 9, our dear Kardec titled it Ingratitude, Children's Ingratitude Before Their Parents, and explains it all. St. Augustine explains it to us. So the answer to ingratitude is forgetfulness. Too bad for them that they are like this. What can we do? Forgive. And when we forgive, we let go. We don't demand. So, he's saying, Jesus' answer, the Christ-conscious answer to ingratitude is letting go of demands and really forgetting it all. It's a practice. If you say, but Vanessa, we can't forget things. Oh, we do. Now science proves to us. I read a paper about it, and it was very surprising. A neuroscience paper, very recent one, showing to us that no matter what happens, we can, even traumatic memories can be forgotten, and the condition is to form new memories. So if you are having a hard time forgetting what people have done, it's a sign that we have not done good enough in our lives to surpass that memory, because the system is going to displace that memory. That's what they prove to us neuroscientifically. That, for example, soldiers who go to wars come back. They have post-traumatic stress disorders. They showed that, and it was quite surprising for the neuroscientists themselves to realize that biologically you could see the changes in the imaging of the brain, the displacing of those traumatic memories when the soldiers were creating solid, new, habitual memories. So we really need to put an effort going towards a completely different direction and let it go. So if we can't forget, it's a sign we haven't done enough good. We have not created enough good memories to displace those bad memories. Okay? Laziness. What is laziness, right? That's a good one, because I remember Casimiro Cunha in the book Drops of Light that we've studied at Kardec Radio. Through Chico Xavier, Casimiro Cunha, the poet, wrote to us several poems, and in so many of them he was talking about laziness as a disease for the soul. And here we come, when Emmanuel, knowing about the human mind, he comes across one of the evils of society, laziness. Because if we need to be benevolent, of goodwill towards everyone, it means that oftentimes we're not, because we have ill will. We're lazy sometimes about putting that effort. So what is laziness? The quality of being unwilling to work or use energy. Idleness. Say, no, I don't want to do this. I don't think I'm gonna do that. Laziness. It's so good when you find people of goodwill. You call them at midnight and say, let's do this, and they say, oh yes, we will. They are head of humanity on earth. But when people, you ask them, oh, let's do this, not now, not today, what about in a week, in a month, what about in a year? And they're still planning it out. And we're not talking about doing bad things, we're talking about good, useful projects. So here comes Emmanuel saying the charity of it all is work. It's still inside of us. He's not talking about laziness of others only. It's all these feelings inside of us. How are we going to cultivate serenity like Jesus at the cross? By being useful. So right now, as we're going through these moments of the coronavirus, if we spend daily moments of prayer for everybody, of sharing good news, counterbalancing this panicking, when we go to sleep, we're gonna go feeling assured that everything's fine, that God is taking care of everything. If and only if I am useful, not lazy, right? So let me just move forward here. Yes, our dear Sunshine saying, our infernal prayers answered coronavirus. Yeah, I think so. Yes, Patty Soares, it's to be grateful for the opportunity to serve. I agree with you. What about another evil that we must overcome? Temptation. Of what? Anything. Eating more than we need. Speaking more than we should. And maybe sleeping more than we should, or resting more than we should, or feeling like drinking and smoking and being in anger, in hatred, or just in the temptation of being melancholic, the temptation of being in anything that is not healthy. what is the response to it? He says, the answer is resistance. Charity in form of resistance. So, resisting, how? Saying, I believe in me, I am divine, I choose something better. I'm not going to go there. Then we have here the other evil, ignorance. And I don't think it's by chance that he starts with sarcasm and ends in darkness. Because we are in a society nowadays that is filled with sarcasm, and it will only lead us to darkness. We need to change that mindset and stop teaching that to our kids. When they ask us, can I do this? And instead of saying, I don't think so, we're like, and then we are sarcastic about it. You know how it is. It's acidic. It's sour. The texture of this is so bad, right? So here we have ignorance, the charity in form of education. That's what we're doing right now, instructing ourselves so we can acquire new habits. Education is the acquisition of new habits. At Kardec, in his comment in question and answer 685 of the Spirit's book. So, for ignorance, our divine Christ conscious answer is education. So we need to instruct ourselves. Always read more. For you, if you have become acquainted with Spiritism, I will say, read more and more and more. Do you think Chico Xavier, in his divine mission, was asked to psychograph almost 500 books just to be a display in a museum or in a bookstore? No. To educate ourselves. So if you read one book, read the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and go on. Because I myself, I've been a spiritist my whole life, and I tell you, it's fascinating how whenever we find a new book, you find something else. And when you read the books that you read again and study the ones that you had before, you'll be fascinated about the new discoveries and how it opens your mind to new understanding. Spiritism is so unique, and I keep repeating this because it is unique. It's the one science with moral implications, philosophical dynamics that pushes us to study, to reflect at public level. Because majority of other religions and philosophies, you are pushed to study if and only if you want to acquire certain levels of hierarchy. The public is not required to, or is not actually invited to ostensibly. In Spiritism, from the get-go, the first thing that founded Spiritism on April 18th, 1857 is a book named The Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec. The first brick of this new thought is a book telling us we will not expand our spirituality if we don't instruct ourselves, if we don't educate ourselves. It's not going to come by closing our eyes, praying, meditating, doing mediumistic meetings, all the spirit phenomena. That's not going to be sufficient. We need to read, to use our reasoning, because our faith is not blind. Our faith is reasoned. That's why it's unshakable. Okay? So for violence, the answer is charity in the form of meekness. It's interesting, and I'm opening here the definition for us. 1 second. Think about it. Violence. It's about gentleness, meekness. When we talk about or mildness, what is it? Right? What is it exactly? 1 second. because I have so many here at once. It's an attribute of human nature and behavior. It has been defined several ways as righteous, humble, teachable, patient, under suffering, long-suffering, willing to follow gospel teachings, an attribute of a true disciple. Meekness, it's like being submissive in the sense of like before God. So violence comes. What do? We believe in God, but we're talking about the inner violence. When we are violent, sometimes we're so violent and aggressive and we don't notice. We are. I recognize it in me many times. You know, hasty ways of saying, rough ways of coming across. Yes, but then I have to tell myself, Vanessa, be gentle. Be gentle with yourself, with people as well. Let's work on this. Be gentle. And remember, let's be submissive to God. Emmanuel, in the book Harvest of Light, we've had the translation of this book here at Kardec Radio last year. He says, we are at an era in which we're shifting the paradigm. For the longest time, for millennia, we have believed in the spirit of force, brutality, and imposition, forcefulness. Now, we are invited to work in the force of the Spirit, meaning, like Jesus. Many looked at him at the cross and said, come on, aren't you powerful? Come out. They were believing in the spirit of force. A person who would be the Messiah, saving with an army, coming and destroying everything, killing people, taking the throne for himself. No. Meek, mild, gentle. Before that violence, he was teaching us that there's so much strength in kindness, in gentleness, in submission to God, meekness. That's not cowardice. Cowardice, it is not. It is actually the sweetness of the soul. Deeply within, we're talking about the balance of the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. The masculine and the feminine. He was firm but kind. He didn't impose, though he proclaimed the truth in actions and words. Finally, we have here, what about evil of crime? We need to help the charity of helping the victims of the crime. So when we see in our current society several different crimes, let's help the people who are suffering. And it's so beautiful. There are shelters, organizations that are helping people who go through violence. We need to help, assisting them, giving them a new beginning. And for darkness, the charity of light. Yes, there's a lot of ignorance now, especially within ourselves. We need to shed some light. So let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And you know, a smile is so enlightening, right? When we are joyful, that's light as well. When people are feeling afraid, let us just share with them like a thought and a feeling of illumination, saying, yes, what do you think about the coronavirus? You know, I believe that God is above it all. We need to do our part, but we can't panic. But Vanessa, we can't talk about God. Well, that's what you think. I think we should. Because if we don't do it now, when we will do it? That's the best time, when people are panicking and they go home like, really, God? I don't know. I don't have a religion. What do I think? Okay, that's a good time. You're not going to preach, but we're just going to share. That's the light that is shining within us. We're divine. So let us repeat to ourselves, I am light. I am love. I'm joy of living. And that is the illumination that we're going to share, right? And for all the processes of inferior activity, the charity in the form of helping to create the best. Like at home, people are lazy. May I not be lazy? Go do your laundry. Oh, but it's Sunday. Well, if you don't do it today, it's going to be Monday. You don't want to do laundry on Monday? Do it on Sunday. Get it done joyfully. Singing and folding. Folding and singing. Folding and singing. Right? Thanking God we have hands to fold our laundry. Instead of complaining, thank God I have my hands in. And look at your hands when you're folding. They're so beautiful. When I see my hands obeying, I say, you're so cute. Because I'm thinking of folding and you're doing it. Remember, we're not the body. The body is responding beautifully to us. Thank you, body. Thank you for doing this. We're cleaning something. We're washing the dishes. And we think of taking the sponge, putting some soap on it. And we look at the hands and we say, wow, you're so precise. I'm thinking of it and you're already doing it. Beautiful. Thank you. And in that, I am expanding in light instead of being that darkness. The darkness of like, I don't want to do this. I could be at the beach instead of washing and cleaning. Said, you know, there are many people right now who are at a hospital and they would give $1 million to switch places and be there washing those dishes and cleaning what you're cleaning, working on what you're working, doing what you're doing. So let's be grateful, shedding this light of gratitude, shedding this joy of living, just opening ourselves up. And he says, creating the best, right? Creating the best. And he says, in any problem of the path of life, including the coronavirus, the Christian response or the Christ conscious response will always be to dissolve the force of evil by the force of the good. Which good? Any good. Where is it? Emmanuel says, seek the good. Visualize it. Feel it. Mold it. That's the proposal. The coronavirus coming? Be creative. Let's create the good, the best during this hour. We are at the best time to do the good. Praying more, sharing more about God, being joyful, being optimistic. This is the best time for us to illuminate ourselves. Okay? And in that, the serenity that God is taking care of everyone. So we're going to thank God for this moment, for Emmanuel's message, for Chico Xavier's effort, and all the illuminated spirits who guide all of our lives. We're not alone. Let us shine our light and have Christ-conscious responses for the challenges of life, always creating the best so we can live in serenity. Thank you, friends. Until tomorrow, God willing, in another program of Living in Serenity here at Kardec Radio, always nourishing our souls. Thank you. Bye-bye.